My name is Adam Witwer. I am the Director of Publishing Technology at O'Reilly Media, and the title of this talk is, We've Got the Tools, Let's Start Using Them. So the title of this talk is what I guess you would call a response to something I hear a lot when we talk about the state of publishing today, and that is, we need new tools. The we, in this case, includes anyone writing, developing, distributing, selling books at all, and that's just about everybody I know, including a lot of the people in this room. And it's true, the emergence of digital books has left us wanting for tools in just about every aspect of publishing and bookmaking, from the authoring and development of the text to the distribution and the sale of the resulting book. I'm not here to argue against that notion, and yes, I did raid the O'Reilly design server, if you're wondering. I'm not here to argue against that notion. We are all looking for new tools to create and sell truly beautiful digital-first, digital books with the kind of dynamic functionality that the web has taught us to expect from digital products. But I worry about this need for tools. There I am. Don't I look worried? I worry about the assumptions and the expectations that comes with the statement, we need new tools, because to me it can sound dangerously passive. And I worry that we're getting more and more desperate, waiting for tools from heaven. There's a washboard there, tuning fork, I think. So from some benevolent overseer who wants to see traditional publishing models thrive well into the future. It seems like we're waiting for someone to create a tool to solve all of our problems. And they're coming. The tools are coming. Not from heaven, but from retailers and tech companies. And as exciting and promising as some of the tools are, they share the common goal of locking publishers and readers to a single platform and/or retail channel. Besides that, I may as well stop beating around the bush and say that I think that the tools do exist and that we're just not using them as publishers. The internet offers us a wealth of tools made specifically for writing, developing, producing, marketing, measuring, presenting, distributing, and selling digital content, which just happens to be what we're doing more and more of in traditional book selling. Maybe these tools weren't created with bookmaking in mind, but when you think about the direction in which the digital book is headed, using them makes good sense. Which is why, starting now, I'm officially banning this phrase from all publishing-related discourse. I hope the publishers out there, especially, will agree with me by the end of this talk. So instead, I'd like us as publishers to ask ourselves this question. What tools aren't we using? And the next few slides show how I've started to discover the answer to this question. Late last year, I joined a small team at O'Reilly whose goal was to create a web-based platform, which we codenamed Atlas, for writing, developing, building, and distributing print and digital books. Here we are 10 months later. This slide shows a screenshot of Atlas in production today. It's in beta. It's being used by about 250 authors and collaborators. So it is working, hooray. We published about a dozen or so books via this new platform. The slide shows one example. This is a 4-color book. We published it, produced in Atlas. We sent it to the printer about 2 weeks ago. The cover, which is in the upper left corner, was created with traditional publishing tools. The interior design in the bottom right corner is 100% InDesign free. You can create beautiful books, print books, without InDesign. And the digital versions, of course, were all created via Atlas as well. Atlas puts a front end on actually a refined version of the single source XML publishing toolchain that we've been using at O'Reilly since 2006. User can select among the major digital formats, although most users just tend to prefer the PDF. They say they don't know how to open the EPUB, which is something I think we need to fix. And one more slide, if you'll indulge me. This is gratuitous, I admit it. This is one more slide, if you'll indulge me, with Atlas functionality. PDF generation is managed via CSS style sheets. Similar to a website, the slide shows the same content generated 4 different sets of style sheets. You've heard of CSS Zen and Liza Daly's EPUB Zen, of course. So with Atlas, we've got our own little PDF Zen, I guess. It's a little gratuitous, I admit, but I included it because it makes me happy. So that's great that it's working. I'm thrilled, like I said. I expect next year probably about 80% of O'Reilly books to be published via the Atlas platform in 2013. And I'm also really lucky that I have a sort of built-in user base with my authors. You know, O'Reilly authors sign on, and I've got users, which is awesome. But I'm not necessarily here to talk about the platform per se, but more about what I've learned working on the team, building it. So along the way, I've been struck by how this tool has come together using existing open source tools, often open source tools. It's been more akin to putting together the pieces of a puzzle rather than building something entirely new, or maybe building on that which came before us. So these guys are clearing out a logjam, which I thought was an appropriate metaphor. So this is something that if you are a developer or you work in a startup, this kind of thinking is something you take for granted. And it's something that is a part of your normal workflow and normal day. But if you work in publishing, I think it's something that we're still learning how to do. And even I at O'Reilly, where we are considered to be advanced among publishers, but even I, a year or two ago, I don't think I was quite there. And I think the Atlas project has sort of taken me to that next level. And I've come to think of this as almost kind of a game, where you identify a need, and then you look around the web to see if the tool already exists and how it might work for you. For example, while working in Atlas, we said we need a tool for developing and managing content. For us, this one was really easy. We decided the best tool for the job of managing our content was something called Git, which many of you know is a version control software, generally used for managing code, but we are using it for managing book content. Git was the right tool for us for a few different reasons. The biggest were probably it's what our users were already using in their normal lives, and it is what they were telling us they wanted to use in book writing. So it was kind of a no-brainer. So we built Atlas on top of a Git server. Each book project is automatically given a Git repository for managing and developing book contents, which the author can use or not as she likes. So using Git, the author can clone down the files to a local writing environment and write in the text editor of her choice, or she can just ignore it altogether and work in the web interface. And Git has been success so far. Our authors are very happy to have what they asked for, and our editorial and production staff, they're coming up to speed. We're all learning how to use it. But with Git, we got a tool that is more than we bargained for, I think, because it creates a seamless integration with GitHub. And if you're not familiar with GitHub, it's a social media site with tools for managing code. And it's also, crucially, it's also where our authors already are. It's where they already work and sort of live. So Git allows an Atlas user to push his book files to a public or private GitHub page where readers can review the contents and potentially submit fixes using Git. The author can use GitHub to build a community around the book. So a question for publishers might be, a question for publishers today might be, why aren't you using GitHub for collaborative writing? The set of tools around GitHub for collaboration are really kind of second to none on the web, especially when you think about managing content. And speaking of collaboration, in addition to the thriving internet community around GitHub, we got a tool for collaborative bookmaking. Writing a book and writing code are both fundamentally solo activities. With code, GitHub changes that by adding a social layer. And we're seeing something similar in Atlas with the writing process. And finally, maybe some of you guys will like this the most. Of course, with Git, we get lots of geeky metrics, such as which writer has contributed the most content, how many lines of text exist in the book, when the last changes were made, changes broken down by week and month, and so on. The sky really is the limit because the stats are built into the tool that we chose. So it was easy for us to extract and expose that information to our authors and our collaborators. So that demonstrates how using an existing open source tool opened up a whole wealth of publishing experimentation, community, possibility. I want to look at it from a different angle, though. I want to show an example of how using a tool allows you to help shape what that tool can become. So here's another need that came up while we were working on Atlas. We need a tool for writing and editing content. This one's pretty obvious, right? So I'm speaking specifically the editing interface within Atlas. And this slide, shows a screenshot of that interface. And this isn't revolutionary. You've seen similar types of wiki type of environments all over the internet, and that was kind of the idea. But the important thing here is that we didn't build this text editor ourselves. We used and extended on an open source text editor called ACE. So ACE is a JavaScript-based text editor, and it's used by Khan Academy and Code Academy and GitHub and lots of other places, and now Atlas. When we first started using ACE, it didn't support highlighting of the wiki-like markup that we use in Atlas, which is something called ASCII-Doc. So we added support ourselves, and we contributed it back to the project. So in this small way, we shaped how the tool works, and we made it work better for us and our authors. And future implementations of ACE on websites other than Atlas and for businesses other than O'Reilly will include this functionality. The game continued throughout the project. As our needs evolved, we tried to pick up and use and shape existing tools on the web. The first one's kind of cheating because it predates Atlas, I admit it. So the content transformation, we use the open source stockbook XSL style sheets. That is another project that we've contributed back to a few times over the year, including for EPUB 3. For marking up text, I already showed you a few screenshots, something called ASCII-Doc. 3? Okay. We use something called ASCII-Doc. Website front end, Rails, interactive content, jQuery, and JavaScript. And for PDF page layouts, we use CSS3. I already showed you that. If you work in publishing, you might have some reservations. Maybe you're thinking, these tools are too technical, or these tools don't fit my needs. And I want to look at each of those concerns. First, we in publishing still think we are making books, not software. And my answer to that is, are you sure? This is a screenshot in iBooks of a book titled JavaScript and jQuery, the Missing Manual. It's an excerpt of an EPUB file rendered within this particular reading platform. But there's no hiding from this, the guts of the modern book. If you're creating and selling digital books, this is what you're working with. True, HTML markup is not the same as software development, but as ebook specifications and reading systems mature, so will our needs as publishers to become comfortable with the fact that what we're publishing is as much software as book. Thinking about books as software and adjusting your tool set is uncomfortable. 10 months ago, I had a very basic understanding of Git. Now I have a slightly above basic understanding of Git. Learning to use that new tool effectively has been and remains a challenging. But at O'Reilly, we're not learning this stuff because it's fun, although it can be. We're learning it because we feel like we have to. And the technical stuff is hard. I studied literature, for goodness sake. But waiting for some tool or set of tools to solve our problems won't work. We don't know if such a tool will ever exists, but my guess is by the time it comes around, the questions surrounding digital bookmaking and selling will have been largely resolved, and the winners and losers decided. Another reservation and objection might be that the tools don't fit just so, and this is probably true. When I was talking about how we use the ACE editor in Atlas, I hope I made the point that by using these tools, we can shape what they become. But it's more than that. By recognizing that the digital book is software and using the tools accordingly, we publishers can shape our own destiny rather than have it shaped for us. So maybe the tools I mentioned today aren't right for you and the kinds of books you publish, but you might be surprised, as I have been, by what's out there. And you might be surprised by how using a tool leads to further possibility and experimentation. So look for tools with an active user base, find a parade, get in front of it, as the saying goes. Find tools that that prevent platform lock-in, and find tools that are close enough. The most important tool in the digital book revolution is the internet itself. Books do belong in browsers, not just for reading, but also for building and collaborating. And the internet has already given us the tools to help us do those things. Thanks very much.